Welcome to the Realty, your source for everything real estate related here in New York. This episode, we're exploring how to secure your legacy with expert insights in estate planning. I have a special guest today. I want her to introduce herself and what she does. Guest, please introduce yourself.
I'm attorney Lin Wang. I'm specialized in trusts and wills. I'm very happy and feel honored to be in this channel to introduce you how trusts and wills work. And thank you very much, Evans.
All right, I'm going to just cut to the chase. People have a lot of questions. There's a lot of information,
Misunderstanding? Yes,
misunderstandings, a lot of
yes.
things that basically they're hearing from one person. They're thinking this is too expensive, or this is something only rich people do. But break it down for people.
Yeah, actually, it is like a lot of people think, okay, only rich people have the trust, and it is so expensive to have a trust. So I will just avoid that part to save on some money, save on some trouble. But actually, a trust is really a very helpful tool to protect and distribute our assets. And for middle class people, the trusts are very helpful as well. Why? Because if we don't have a trust, if we pass away, we need to go to the probate court. And the probate court will decide how to distribute our assets according to the legal hierarchy of inheritance. So first, it will find out whether we have the surviving spouse and children, no, then surviving parents, then surviving siblings, surviving nieces and nephews, and then cousins. So it will be level by level. But we can imagine it is a lot of work to find all the people. The court does charge for that, and they charge usually 5 to 15% of the estate value to go through the probate court. It means if we have $1 million, we will give up 50K to 150K to the probate court process. As well, it does take some time to finish the whole process. Usually, nation average, it takes 1 to 2 years. And in some like big states like New York, like California, especially Queens County where Evans and I are, it can take 3 to 5 years because the probate court is on the county level. And there are so many people living in the Queens County. So more people deceased over here, a lot of workloads, which just delays the process of the Queens County probate court. So longer waiting time. And it does disclose our information to the public. So the public can know about our passing away and come here to the court to claim their rights, if any. But that will be the disclosure of privacy. So if we want to avoid the probate, we can choose to have a trust. And in the trust, we can designate the families, the friends to be the trustees of our families and our assets. So if we pass away, instead of going through the painful, tricky, and very wasting probate court process, our families and friends can take over the assets directly and automatically out of the authorization of the trust. In this way, they can make sure we don't have to pay the 5 to 15% of the money to go through the probate. We don't have to wait for 1 to 2 years or even 3 to 5 years to finish the process, and we don't have to disclose our privacy. So trust is really very helpful, and we can make a simple calculation. For example, if we don't have a trust, we go to the probate, right? And we go to the probate, they charge us 5 to 15% of the money. Everyone has different opinions about how important our time is and our privacy. But money is money. It's very the same thing to everyone. And if we multiply $60,000 by 5%, just let's be optimistic. Cross our fingers hoping the process is not too long and they only charge us 5 instead of 15 or even more percentage of the money. And that will be $3,000. But our trust is $3,000 to $6,500, depending on what kind of trust it is, because different people have different needs and different needs need different trusts. It means if we have anything more than $60,000 after our passing away, we need to have a trust to avoid the cost. Basically, if you have a house, a residential house, or anything in the United States, a trust is something that you should think about. So it is not really for the rich people only, and it is not expensive. It's quite affordable, and actually it's something we should do for saving money to avoid the probate. Thank you.
It sounds that it's more expensive not to have one than I want people to understand that basically when you're getting, you have assets, whether it's a house, bank, whatever you want to make sure you want to avoid that stress. Get this done for your family's sake so they have enough that they're going to be worried about when you're passing away. So one last thing you can take off the plate. My next question that I have for you, for someone that owns multiple properties, what should they consider when they're planning their estate to ensure that it's a smooth transaction for the heirs?
Yeah, so if they have like multiple properties, like they have a lot of properties, especially if they have the properties in multiple states. Like I have noticed that some people they have like a lot of properties like all around the United States. Especially, Asian people, Chinese people, they are rich. They want to have investment. They have a lot of real properties all around the United States. Like for example, they have properties in New York, New Jersey, Texas. And if we pass our way, then we need to go to the multiple states to finish the probate court process. Because we know we have like the federal court. It means if we have like the state like level cases, like for the probate court cases, it is state level. Actually, it is county level. So in this way, if we have assets in multiple states, it's not like I can handle them like at one time in one particular state. I have to go to multiple states to finish the whole process. Like if I have houses in Texas, I go to Texas to finish the probate court process. If I have houses in New Jersey, I go to New Jersey. For the houses in New York, I handle it in New York. So it is a lot of work. So if we have assets like multiple properties in multiple states, then we need to have multiple work. So in this way, we have to pay multiple costs of the probate court. And if we don't want to, the good news is a trust can help us to protect all of the assets all over the United States in one particular trust. So in this way, we don't have to go through the probate in multiple states, and it can save us a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of privacy, and a lot of peace of mind. And also when people have multiple real properties, sometimes they rent the houses out, but they rent the houses out in the name of their individual names instead of the company names. That's another thing we need to think about, because if we just rent it under our own name, then it means like in the future, if our tenants hurt themselves in the house or something like that, we need to pay everything we have for the loss. Like we need to take the money from our brokerage accounts, our bank accounts, or other real properties to pay off the debts. That is a big burden and we cannot limit it. So we need to have LLCs, we need to have corporations to limit the assets liabilities. Like it's a bubble and it includes every liabilities caused by the assets in the company where the assets is.
Okay.
So for example, if I have a house and I put it under the name of an LLC or corporation, in the future, if I have the liabilities from the house, then everything will be included in the house. Only the house value will be lost, but not for other things. So in this way, we can protect our assets with a expectable future. So I will suggest people, if you have assets, real properties in multiple states, definitely have a trust to avoid the probate court in multiple states. And if you rent your house, definitely establishing the companies, the corporations, to limit your liabilities to a anticipable like thing. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
All right. My next question I have, many families may be facing challenges and they're deciding whether they want to do this, and they have inherited real estate or assets. What legal considerations should they keep in mind during this process?
Yeah, so if we have the process, like for example, if like our family are in the process, we want to make sure we understand the process. So if we have like the multiple assets and in multiple states, then we want to make sure like we can have the trust. And I always suggest people to go to like a professional people to do that. So in this way, we know what we are doing because different trusts do have different rules and different needs. People have like different kind of like needs. So I always say have the best way to do that is to go to the the professional people to talk about that. So we know what is best for our choice. Yeah.
Okay. And what are some of the common mistakes or pitfalls that people make when it comes to estate planning for their real estate assets?
Yeah, so many people like make mistakes when we have the trusts and when we have the real properties. And the biggest one is that we forget to put our assets in the name of the trust.
Mm,
Because when we have the trust, it's not only the black and white paper, and we just put the paper uh, over there and we don't do anything. It doesn't work in that way. It just doesn't work. So if we want the particular assets to be protected by the trust, we need to put it in the name of the trust. We need to like record the assets in the trust. And that is a main difference between the trust and wills. So when we have a will, then like we just put it in the black and white and we just put it over there. And then if like in the future when we pass away, our families cannot get the money from the will directly and automatically. Instead, they go to the probate court. And the probate court wants to make sure our will is authentic before it allows us to proceed to distribute our assets according to the will. And in order to verify the will, they charge 5 to 15% of the money to go through the probate for the verification. And it takes 1 to 2 years or even 3 to 5 years to finish the whole process.
yeah.
And it does ask us to disclose the details of the will to make sure like if someone knows the will is a fake, they can have the access to the contents and they can find it out and they can come to the court to make their claim. But it is very challenging and a very tricky, tedious process to do that. And if we have a trust, it is not only the black and white paper, but we can make sure like if we pass away, we don't have to go through the probate to finish the whole process. So we can make sure like if we pass away, the assets are already recorded under the trust name. So in this way, we can make sure we don't have to go through the probate to verify whether the trust is valid or authentic or not, because we already make the records when we are still alive. So there is no further like need to do that. So in this way, we will be protected. So we don't have to spend the 5 to 15% of the money. We don't have to disclose our privacy. We don't have to have the 5 to 15% of the money and 1 to 2 years or even 3 to 5 years for the waiting time. So if we have a trust, the main thing, the important thing, is not to just, have the black and white paper and take it back home and just sleep on that. We need to record our assets in the name of the trust. Otherwise, if we pass away, we will find out, okay, even if I have the trust, I still need to go through the probate to finish the assets. So probate court process. So it is a very bad way to do that. So if you have a trust, please make sure you always have the recording to make sure that will work. So that's my suggestion. And also, if you have a trust, you always want to change it in the future because perhaps your situations change.
Okay.
Perhaps you have new children, you have new houses, and don't forget to put the new assets in the trust to be protected. So that's my suggestion. Thank you.
All right. Now, question regarding assets. The people who are watching this might not understand. What can the assets be in a trust besides the house? What can assets be?
Yeah, so if like besides the houses, like if we have a trust is about protection. So we always want to put assets in the trust to be protected. So besides real properties, you want to put your like life insurance policies, your like bank accounts, your uh brokerage accounts, you want to put everything in the trust to be protected. Because even if sometimes you can add, you can add the beneficiaries, right? But even if you put the beneficiaries in the future, if we pass away, yes, no probate court process. But what if they have creditors? What if they owe money to others? Or what if they have credit, like if they divorce, we give the money to our children, but they divorce. So the creditors and divorce can take the money away from our children. So we will lose the money. So the best way is to put it in the trust. And the trust will say if we pass away, we can make the assets like in the trust and they will be protected. So if our children have creditors, if they get divorced, the divorce and the creditors cannot force our children to use the money to pay off debts or to be divided in the divorce court. So that will be the actual protection. So my suggestion is to put everything in the trust to be protected. Thank you.
I think my next question is basically real estate markets can be dynamic. How can somebody have an estate plan be adjusted, or should they review the property value when the property value changes significantly? Should they be? I know you mentioned that before. Should they check their plan on a regular basis, and how often?
Yeah, so it can be dynamic. And my suggestion is there is no like setup time, to review your documents. Because everyone is different. A lot of people, especially, the business people, they change a lot, right? Their assets will be changed a lot. They do a lot of different things. So I will say if you have a lot of changes, then you need to review your documents perhaps every month or every year or like every other year, just to make sure it is consistent with your steps, right? But for other people, like for the people who only have the residential houses or like they have very stable the residential house and investment houses, so they can like review it every year or something like that. That should be enough. So I will say my suggestion is to review it perhaps once a year for general people, but I really need to know the situations. So for people with more changes, I would say perhaps review it like more frequently. Thank you.
All right. What advice would you give to someone who's considering gifting real estate to a family member or maybe a charity organization as part of their estate plan?
Yeah, so like for the real estate plan, like if some people like they want to give the uh assets just to their family members or the charities, I will say think about it, be careful. Because if we just give the assets to the charities or the family directly, it means like we lose the control when we give up the assets. So in the future, we don't have the assets anymore. And in this case, it means like what if the people get the assets they have like if they just want to evict us, right? I give the house to my children, but my children want me to leave the house, then it can be a tragedy, right? It can be sad. And also, like if I just give out, then what if they have their own creditors? For example, if they have creditors, or if they have like the divorce, the money will be taken away by the creditors and the divorce. So the money will be gone without protection. And what if about their capital gain tax? Capital gain tax is the tax imposed on the people for the difference between whatever they pay when they buy the house and whatever they get when they sell the house, right? You earn money, so you need to pay capital gain tax. And the capital gain tax will be calculated differently depending on whether we give the assets to the families, like when they are still alive, or when we pass away. So if we give the assets to the families when we're still alive, it means it will be a gift. And the capital gain tax basis will be whatever we buy the house like at the very beginning. For example, I buy the house for 50K, and then the capital gain tax basis will be 50K. And in the future, like if I pass away and they sell the house, they sell it for example, $1 million, like the difference between $1 million and 50K. So 950K will be subject to the capital gain tax. But if we give the assets to our families after our passing away, then the capital gain tax basis will be the market price when we pass away. For example, at that time, the market price is already $1 million, and our families sell it at $1 million. Then there is no capital gain tax.
Okay.
So I would say for our own control, for the protection against our family's creditors and divorce, and for capital gain tax issue, I would say have a trust is a better thing than just giving the assets out like at one time. Thank you.
Gotcha. All right, so now for the people, do you have like any real life examples or case studies of how effective estate planning has made a positive impact in real estate related matters for families or individuals that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I have seen a lot of things that will work because like if we have the trust, we can help our families to avoid the probate, right? So that is very helpful. And if we have the assets like in the trust, we are protected, so we are very protected. And also like the trust can survive our passing away. So if we have any like the creditors, for example, in the future, if our children have creditors, if they owe money to others, or if they get divorced, then the creditors and divorce can not take the money away from my families. So that is a protection for my children and my future beneficiaries. So my families, like my clients' families, they are always happy to avoid the probate and avoid the creditors and the spouse for their children. So that's what a trust can do. And that's what I suggest everyone with assets to think about. Thank you.
All right, so I have to ask this question. This is a difficult conversation to have. We talked about this before we recorded this. A lot of people are very squeamish, different cultures, they don't want to have this conversation. It's considered rude or bad luck to talk about if a family member has a will and stuff like that. But it's a conversation we need to have to avoid the stress and everything that we just discussed, all the bad things, all the extra money and stuff like that. We don't need to be spending extra money when all we have to do is just have the conversation. So how do you approach, like, let's say for me, example, I go to my mom and I'm like, hey, mom, we need to talk about your will, your trust. How do I have the conversation?
I will say nobody wants to talk about death. We want to be happy. We don't want to talk about death. But we can always say, okay, I want to protect your assets. I want to make sure if something bad happens, we can still control the assets instead of the government, instead of losing money. So I just want to make sure if we pass away, we have the peace of mind to control our assets and protect our assets. So that's what I can do. And then that will be a very positive like conversation. So that's what my clients always do, and that always works. So just focus on the asset protection. Thank you.
So if it's son talking to the mother or father, or if it's husband and wife that just got married and they're buying a house or they're starting a new life together, everybody should have this conversation and start from there. Now, if they want more information, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so they can reach me at my number of 612-231-2060, 612-231-2060. And also my email, Lin Wang, LINWANG, at G like girl, K like king, LAWGROUP.com, LINWANG at GKLawGroup.com. Thank you.
I have to ask you, how many languages do you speak?
I speak English, Mandarin, and a little bit Cantonese. Cantonese is enough for my business.
All right. Do you want to share anything basically with the audience? Like anything that we talked about already, share something with the audience for what they need to do next.
Yeah, I will say if we know the knowledge, the next step is to take action to do that because we want to have the peace of mind. We want to be protected. So a trust and wills is something that we should think about right now. Thank you.
All right, you want to say it in Cantonese?
Yeah, so 順託通遺囑呢係好重要嘅嘢。如果你希望你嘅屋企人啊被保護起嚟嘅話，你希望你嘅財產係被保護起嚟，順託通遺囑都係好重要嘅。你需要行動起嚟去保護你自己啦。 Thank you.
All right. So if they want to talk to you, they can call you on the phone. They can meet with you face to face, or if they're in another state or somewhere else where they can't leave their house at that moment, can they do a Zoom or FaceTime? What options are there?
Yeah, they can meet me in person. They can meet me like face to face or like on the Zoom virtual meetings or on the calls. A lot of options. We always work our best to serve our client's best interest.
All right. Thank you so much, Lynn. I have to
Thank
ask one last thing. Well, it's not really a question. Before when we're greeting people, I say ni hao,
you. Ni
ni hao,
hao.
ni
Yes.
hao, and then
Hello.
when
Yes.
we're saying goodbye, we say xie xie.
When we say goodbye, we say 再见. 谢谢 means
All
thank
right.
you.
再见，
Yeah.
谢谢。
再见,
All
谢
right.
谢. Thank you. Bye
All
bye.
right. So with that being said, I hope people got some value out of this, what they were watching. If you have any questions on the real estate side, feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. If you have any questions about the probate side, how to avoid the probate and get a trust, get that done as soon as possible, call Lynn. All her information will be here in this video. Feel free to leave us some comments. Let us know if there's something we didn't cover that you want information about. We can make another video about that as well. With that being said, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and ask us questions. That's what we're here for.
Thank you. Bye bye.
谢谢。